Good morning, everyone. I've never had to follow from Patrick Swayze before. Right, well, what a fantastic introduction. My name is Tom Poole, and I come from the UK, and we had a Victus machine put into our unit in 2016. And my job is to tell you about flax present and future. So we know it's still a very, very hotly debated topic, flax. There are people who have a machine who say, yeah, it's pretty good, I really like it. And there are people who don't have a machine, say it's a load of rubbish, and why are you getting this? And we still see very heated discussions on the topic. But we do know it's no worse than manual phacoemulsification surgery, and it may offer some small advantages. In fact, on the plane yesterday, I was reading about better lens centration following YAG posterior capsulotomy in flax eyes compared to non-flax eyes, better centration of the lens. And also, I think there's less energy imparted to the lens during the surgery and maybe some improvements in endothelial cell counts. But what we do know is that for certain eyes, flax does give major advantages. And it also, in my opinion, gives major advantages for efficiency if we use it correctly. Some of the problems that people have associated in the past with flax, I believe, can be overcome by careful planning and using the correct preparation for the patient. If you don't use a topical NSAID before the surgery, then the laser will bring the pupil down, and that will make your situation much worse. But actually, the pupils are perfect if you treat them properly. Patients should also be docked as well as possible, and you should pay attention to the detail of getting that patient right when you're actually preparing for surgery, and attention to the lens marking, because if you don't mark the lens properly, you can't blame the laser if you have a capsule that's incomplete. Here's an example in our early days of a surgeon who is preparing the patient for surgery. The eye hasn't been very well docked, and you will see that the lens is actually, the anterior capsule should be within those two purple marks, and it's not. The lens hasn't been marked accurately, and the surgeon has missed that and has gone on to complete the case, and luckily there wasn't a problem. But it just shows that we need to be vigilant and not flick through these screens very quickly. We just need to pay attention. I believe that flax gives a very major advantage in certain eyes, and those include white cataracts, very dense cataracts, difficult eyes, and low astigmatism, which I'm talking about later on in the morning. And I think in these cases, it doesn't matter if the laser is in your operating theatre or if it's in a different room. It doesn't really matter. This is an intumescent white cataract. You can see it's quite a bulgy-looking OCT scan of the lens, and we'll see that it's been nicely docked, and the capsulotomy is almost instantaneous. And this may well have been the type of lens that could lead to an Argentinian flag sign. And you can see it's so quick that the capsule hasn't got time to rip out. And I find this sort of lens, it's incredibly useful having the laser. This is an eye you'll see from the OCT. It's had a previous penetrating keratoplasty. It's quite a small pupil. It's an elderly patient. It's a dense cataract. And I find that flax is really useful in helping me treat these sort of eyes. I believe also that flax can give us a major advantage in efficiency. In this case, the laser must be in a separate room, and ideally feeding 2 or more operating theatres. You need a separate femtosurgeon. In our case, it's often a trainee, or I'll swap around. I'll do half the list, the trainee will then swap with me. And this standardises cataract surgery in those difficult cases. So you may have a list of all sorts of different cases, but the flax makes those standardise. In that case, the list becomes very predictable, and this is ideally suited to high-volume public hospital operating lists. It's key if you're trying to perform these sort of lists to have good flow. I'm convinced in the future we will have laser technicians, not doctors, who are skilled at applying the femto laser to the eye, pre-treating the cataract. It's something I've tried to get going in our department, but there was a reticence, there was a reluctance. It's kind of going against the current thinking, and not to have a doctor doing that step was seen as, you're going a bit too far. But I believe that is the future. You can stack lasered patients on your ward, so you can pre-treat them, and then you may have 2 or 3 that have already been lasered and go through to the operating theatre. And we've found that if you keep your cataracts in a busy general hospital where you're doing all sorts of different specialties, it's best if you keep your cataracts on the same list. So this is our setup at Frimley Park Hospital in the UK. This is my fellow. who's just completing a femto case. And we're lucky we have the femto situated in a separate room on the eye ward. So the patient goes into the eye ward, and it's a very short trip to our twin operating theatre. We've got 2 theatres. This is the second theatre, and here's another of my colleagues who's just starting the case that's been previously femtoed. And so you generate this flow. You've got this constant stream of eyes that have been pre-treated with laser in the operating theatre, and that makes it very quick for the operating surgeon. These are the number of cataracts performed at Frimley Park. We're not a massive unit, but we jumped quite a bit when we introduced femto in 2016. I've been asked to talk about the future as well. If I had a wish list, I think it's certainly in the public patients. A lot of these are very elderly. Some are quite frail. They might be a bit kyphotic. In fact, the current Victus bed is pretty good. It's surprisingly good. It looks like a plank, but it actually has some degrees of freedom in the head, and you can tilt it a little bit, get it up and down, and you can get most patients with a cushion under their knees to fit quite comfortably under the laser. But I think if you had a slightly more ergonomic bed for the elderly patients that could get into position quickly, that would be great. Of course, faster recognition. The recognition is fast and the delivery is fast. You can do a flax in just over a minute. But even faster, that would be great. And I think what would be really nice is toric alignment. If you're using AKs, it would be nice not to have to mark the eye before. If the machine recognized the toric alignment, that would be great. What's on the horizon? There's a new French system which is claiming to give super fast flax. And what it does is instead of delivering a line of pulses, it's delivering a matrix of pulses all at once. And it's claimed to be 10 times faster. It fragments the cataract into tiny cubes very close to the capsule. It goes right out to the capsule. And it's supposed to be no ultrasound needed. So you just aspirate. We could actually do a similar thing with the Victus. You can cut the nucleus into little chips. And we have done a little bit of phaco-free. There's a special aspiration tip. But we've found for the denser nuclei, it doesn't really work that well. I think Pavel Studolko presented the first cases at the ESCRS in Paris. I didn't see the talk. Anyway, it's something to watch. It'll be quite interesting to see how that develops. This is not quite flax, but I think other people are branching out and thinking, what else can I use this laser for? And Holland and Mamelis in the USA have looked at changing the surface of the lens. You can just see the changes on the surface of the lens by using low-powered femtosecond laser and altering the power of the lens, a bit like the light adjustable lens. After the surgery, you're just doing a little tweak with a femtosecond. So that's quite interesting. This is also happening in America, LYRIC, laser-induced refractive index change. And this is a corneal treatment with a femtosecond laser. Scott McRae's doing it in Rochester. And these are very, very low-energy pulses of femtosecond, 1/100th to 1,000th of the energy of flax. There's no ablation, no flap, and you're changing the refractive index of the cornea. So that's going to be an alternative in the future, maybe, to SMILE and etc. We'll see how that develops. I found this very interesting. I saw this presented at ESCRS. I don't think it was Paris. I think it might have been Copenhagen by Larsen's group in Denmark. And what they've done is just use bleaching with a femtosecond laser. And initially I kind of poo-pooed this and thought, yeah, but people are still going to want their cataract taken out. But actually, if you think about it, if you've got an 80-year-old with a nuclear sclerotic cataract, no cortical cataract, and they're emetropic, they don't mind wearing reading glasses, if you can give them a 1-minute treatment to bleach their lens and improve their vision, that may be quite an interesting concept for, certainly in the public sector. You could get hundreds of patients through very quickly to give them better vision. So I think that's quite an interesting line of work. In the near future at Victus, we're very excited about the 3.4, and I think there's some discussion about that later on. And I think all the corneal surgeons, myself included, are really looking forward to being able to do mushroom keratoplasties. That's the thing we're most looking forward to. But there are other clever shapes that the Victus will be able to do very soon for us. And then we have the new clip already at Frimley. We're one of the first units to have it. And these clips are just getting better and better, a little bit smaller, get in the eye a bit more easily, easier to use, easier to apply to the patient. In fact, about a month ago, I used one of the first clips we used from 4 years ago. And it was remarkable how much bigger it felt and how much more difficult to use. So I think in all parts of the sort of pathway, things are improving for us with each new iteration. There are also going to be new cutting features, a little bit like the super fast femto I talked about with cutting little chips, nuclear chips. We can do that with Victus, but the trouble is you then get a bowl, and so there's going to be a new pattern where there's some radial peripheral cuts as well, which will allow you to suck up the nucleus and not get a bowl. So that's me nearly finished. So I think for the future, I would say femtosecond laser cataract surgery is definitely here to stay. I think the trend will be perhaps that femtosecond systems will become, for the cataract-only surgeon, will become smaller, faster, more convenient, and less expensive. And maybe those can be in the operating theatre, and you can still operate a very fast operating list with them. But I think, as we've seen, the femtosecond laser's repertoire will widen, and there will be new things on the horizon. And I think the therapeutic applications of femtosecond laser will become an essential part of corneal surgery because of the different cuts you can do, especially with the growth of lamellar keratoplasty. I think anyone doing DALCs will just need a femtosecond laser in the future. Thank you very much.